Hi, Arizona Alpha audience. I am here to talk to you today about successful strategies in a wellness program. My name is Sarah Matyko. I work for Senior Resource Group, and I'm excited to share with you about our wellness program and strategies that you too can implement at your company. Senior Resource Group is, we have 7 communities in 32 different states. This is an example of our webpage. You can learn more about us by going there. So today I'm going to talk to you about SRG's wellness program and give you real-time examples of some of the things that we've done. And I'm also going to give you key strategies to ensure success. So sprinkled throughout the presentation are some key strategies. Anytime you see this surfer dude, there's key strategies to pay attention to. And that's because I want to remind you that I'm here in California and you are in Arizona where it's 112 degrees and very hot. So I hope you have your AC on for this presentation. So success strategy number 1 is to understand your residents. You can't have an effective wellness program if you don't first take the time to understand your unique resident demographic. So one of the first things that we did when I joined SRG in 2017 is did a lot of research about our residents. And I know many of you are seasoned professionals in the senior living industry. So all of these things and all of the data and resident traits are very intuitive to you. They weren't so much to me. And then there's a lot of research out there about communicating with your residents and the best way to do that. One of the main takeaways for me was to use clear, bright pictures, larger type, reduce extra stimuli. Our resident demographic prefers a lot of white space, and to be sure to communicate to their cognitive age, not their chronological age. So an interesting tidbit about that is I actually, when I first started, did focus groups with residents, and I had them separated into 2 different groups, and one group of residents had an assistance device like a walker, a wheelchair, or a cane. And then the other group of residents didn't have any sort of assistance. And I asked them, I showed them 2 sets of pictures. One was a picture of a young, healthy person out running, and the other was a picture of someone their age exercising in a gym with an assistance device. And I said, which picture resonates with you the most? And 92% of our residents chose the young, healthy person out running. And so what that told me was that perceived sense of self is more powerful than actual physical health status, meaning that we all think we're 30 or 40 years younger than we actually are. And I think we can all agree on that. So that's something that I found in the research early on to really help us craft our wellness program is to understand our residents. So ask them what they want. The great thing about our resident demographic is that if you ask them for their opinion, they are more than happy to give it to you. So our goal was to offer meaningful activities that challenge, stimulate, and engage residents. So back in 2017, when I joined SRG, we did focus groups and a bunch of surveys with 650 residents. What we found was that 82% of our residents said about our current programs and activities back in 2017 that they wanted more clarity. They weren't really sure what we were trying to accomplish. 95% said they wanted a wellness focus, which was great because that's what they hired me to do. And 100% said that they wanted more engagement. They wanted the programs and activities that we were offering to be more engaging. So we took that information and we created a program called SRG Zest, which I'm going to tell you about in a second, but leads me to success strategy number 2, which is to build an evidence-based infrastructure for your wellness program. So like I said, our wellness program is called SRG Zest. We simplified the 7 dimensions of wellness down to mind, body, and soul. We did that for a lot of reasons that I'll get into later. But first, I'm going to tell you about SRG Zest and give you an idea of what our wellness program really is. So 2 key action items when we decided we were going to call the program SRG Zest. The first was to inculcate wellness into our organizational culture. So we actually changed the name from payroll on our email listservs, the actual title of program directors to Zest directors, because we really wanted to show our commitment to Zest and show organization-wide to both residents and to staff that Zest is something that's here to stay and it's not going to go anywhere. So just that simple act of committing to it in this powerful way across the organization, where now everybody refers to program directors as Zest directors and Zest assistants, made a big difference. it shows that commitment. And then the second thing is to create ownership. And this is pretty intuitive, but if change is very disturbing when it is done to us, it's exhilarating when it's done by us. So again, very intuitive, but the more you involve employees in whatever new program you're trying to launch, the more you're going to get buy-in, and the better the adoption and the execution and the implementation of the program is going to go. And so this is one of the key successes to Zest is once we determined, we got that initial data from the residents, found out what we wanted to do, call the program Zest. We actually had a programming summit. The first year I was with SRG, brought all of the program directors together and talked about Zest. Got their expertise because they're the ones that have been working with the residents all this time, and really learned from them and got their ownership on what they think we should do with Zest and how we should build that blueprint for the program. And I can tell you that that strategy is so effective because by the time we had the now Zest directors launch Zest at their communities, they were psyched about it because they played in hand in helping us build it. An example of that is one of the main challenges I identified with the program directors when I first started at SRG was that we really needed to increase our sophistication level. It's important to us at Senior Resource Group that our communities don't feel like a nursing home. And so, I posed this question to the team of program directors, and together we all came up with the term a remarkable activity. So it's any activity that a resident walks away from making remarks about for weeks to come. And we know that bizarre out there ideas are always more successful than boring ones because the residents, just like us, want novelty and new experiences. So because we came up with the term remarkable as our bar for the best types of activities we want to be offering, that's now a regular part of our performance review process with the Zest directors and the vernacular that we use on the Zest team. So again, the more you can involve your staff in creating your wellness program with you so that they have buy-in and ownership and help you build it, the better the execution and implementation is going to be. So I want to tell you a little bit about Zest and our wellness program to give you an idea of how we did it and some real-time examples of strategies that work. So we chose the name Zest for a lot of reasons. The literal definition of the word meaning feeling alive and activated, having energy, vitality, enthusiasm. But even more than that, in positive psychology research, Zest is one of the 5 character strengths strongly related with life satisfaction and well-being. So we actually know from the research that people that are curious, have gratitude, optimism, love, and zest report higher levels of happiness than those that don't have those things. Additionally, methods to cultivate zest in the positive psych research are engaging in activities that require physical effort, adding more challenges onto your daily routine, creating new ways to complete your daily schedule, doing new activities, and having more social contact. So those are things that our program directors who became Zest directors were doing anyways. So it really fit with the title Zest. And then if I said to all of you right now, Old MacDonald had a farm, you would say E-I-E-I-O. That's processing fluency. And what we know from the research, and again, you want your wellness program to be evidence-based, is that the more you have to take away the thinking and the decision-making from the resident or the customer, the more likely they are to engage in something and the more likely they are to adhere to it. So for example, if you or I went to the supermarket together and we saw Tide on the shelf, we wouldn't even have to think about it. We'd just pick up that Tide and put it in our cart because they've done such a great job with their branding and their color psychology and things like that, which we'll talk about. So we wanted the same thing to be true for Zest. We wanted residents with cognitive decline to be able to say, I want to go to that activity because of things like color psychology. So color psychology is actually a field where brands, you can see a lot of different brands up here, pay a lot of money to have someone figure out what makes their products or their brand more engaging for certain types of things. Every color makes us elicit an emotion. So we did the same thing with Zest. The orange makes us feel uplifted, enthusiastic, and rejuvenated. The purple, successful, wise, and imaginative. The blue for mind, trustworthy, secure, and responsible. the green for body, natural, healthy, and peaceful, and the pink for soul, calm, loving, and passionate. So if I go back to the green, have you ever been to the grocery store and you go to the health food aisle and all the health food has nice green packaging? That's because the food industry knows that it makes you feel like it's healthy, even if it's not. And so that's how they get you, but that's color psychology. So we built that in, and the thought process was when the residents see that blue color on the calendar for mind activities, they don't even have to think about it. They just think, oh, I love those blue activities, I'm going to go to those, which is great for that processing fluency that we just talked about for people that have cognitive decline. We also chose colors specifically for the aging eye, things like macular degeneration. Another thing that you may not know is how important visuals are for seniors. So for all of us, not just seniors, our brains process images 60,000 times faster than text. 65% of people are visual learners, and 80% of visual information is retained by the human brain compared to only 20% retention for text. It's a pretty big deal. It's why Instagram is so popular, and marketing these days is a lot more visual than it ever has been in the past, because we know this now. So when I looked in 2017 at what some of the collateral that our programs teams were putting out wasn't standardized. These are examples up on the screen. They weren't using best practices, and it really lacked clarity. So by best practices, I mean they were very busy. There was more text than the resident needed to know, and nothing was cohesive or standardized. So what we did is we created mind, body, and soul flyers, very visual, consistent branding, the use of color psychology. So again, if our resident has cognitive decline and they see that green, they know that they love exercising. So they're just going to go to that green activity. It's that processing fluency piece. Very easily recognizable, large, clean type, lots of use of white space, and simple and easy to understand. I can tell you that just making this simple modification, the colors alone, the use of white space, using those evidence-based best practices of what engage and appeal to our residents, increase participation in our activities. Additionally, a lot of the feedback that we got from our residents in the initial focus groups was that some of the things that we were putting on the collateral before I joined SRG was culturally offensive. We have many different cultures across our 32 communities of residents. So we chose icons that are simple and easily recognizable, versatile to fit a range of activities and ideas, very consistent sizing and shapes, utilizes color psychology, and is culturally aware. We also put a lot of science behind mind, body, and soul. And so I'm just gonna talk to you about those really quick. For mind, we built it around cognitive reserve. So if you or I died right now and they did an autopsy of our brains and our brains were showing signs of dementia or Alzheimer's, but we weren't presenting those symptoms when we were alive, it means we have really strong cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve is what protects our brains from damage. And there's 6 evidence-based ways in our life right now to promote cognitive reserve while we're alive, which helps protect our brain health. So one of those 6 ways is to eat plant-based foods. So we actually put Fresh Zest, which is a plant-based menu item, on our menus for residents to choose from. And by doing that, they know that they're going to be promoting cognitive reserve. In fact, the research shows that even if you just give up meat one night a week, you can promote cognitive reserve. So we are definitely not telling our residents to be vegan or vegetarian. I'm personally not vegan or vegetarian, but what we are saying is that we know that eating plant-based does promote cognitive reserve. So we want to give them that option. The second way to promote cognitive reserve is to exercise regularly. So some examples are up there. The third way is to get enough sleep. So aromatherapy, music therapy, sleep hygiene presentations, mindfulness. The fourth way to promote cognitive reserve and protect your brain from damage is to manage stress. So things like art, music, everybody manages stress in their own unique way. The fifth way is to nurture social connections. So I'm sure it's no surprise to you that let's see, social connectedness is just as important to our health as not smoking. So all of our residents who live in our buildings made a really good decision because it's so important to our health and well-being. And then the last one is to challenge your brain. So things like technology trainings have been really key in this area. Our residents love lifelong learning, things like that. So in summary for Mind, our ZEST directors offer activities for residents to promote cognitive reserve should they want to. And the reason that I'm telling you this and sharing our evidence-based approach with you is because all too often with wellness programs, I see them just sort of doing wellness, but not actually putting the evidence-based piece behind it. And it's so important to have that evidence-based piece, because if you don't, then your program's not going to work. If you're just hopping on the next juicing cleanse bandwagon, or just focusing on weight loss by 10,000 steps a day, those things aren't going to elicit the outcomes that you want for your residents to really see positive changes in their health through your wellness program. So body's the next one. We actually base the research for body off of blue zones, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. There are 5 areas throughout the world where the highest concentration of people that live to be centenarians, over 100, reside. Movement has so many positive benefits. I could spend the whole hour talking about how good exercise is for our residents to prevent decline. As soon as our residents stop moving, decline starts. So the more we can keep residents moving, the better. But what we did find from the Blue Zones research is that people who live to be over 100 do not go to the gym and pump iron. Instead, they exercise and play. They go for walks, they play the electric air guitar, they infuse movement into their day. So that's what we did for the body component of ZEST. And then for soul, we based the research off of something from Csikszentmihalyi, which is basically, if you think of an activity that you really love, like scrapbooking for me, and I feel like, 30 minutes has gone by, but it's really 5 hours, that's when you're in a state of flow. And so there's very specific ways that we can create that state of flow for our residents through things like anything with green, nature, and plants create that state of flow. Any sort of pride or benevolence activity where residents talk about something they're really proud of, like their children or their career. Residents had me put happy hour on here because they feel like that stimulates their soul. But any sort of personalized creative outlet is something that's going to fall in that soul category on our calendars. So in summary, ZEST is an evidence-based program grounded in science designed to enrich lives. The mind component promotes cognitive reserve to protect your brain from damage. The body infuses feel-good movement into your day, and the soul provides creative outlets to foster that state of flow. So again, you're probably saying, why should I care about SRG's wellness program? The reason is outcomes. A lot of wellness programs out there don't put the evidence-based component into it, so they do not get the outcomes. And why would you even have a wellness program if you're not looking at actually making people well and helping them make healthy lifestyle decisions? So that success strategy of building that evidence-based infrastructure is where you should start if you're building a wellness program. Success strategy number 3, be data-driven. So when we first launched ZEST at each community, we launched it as 12 weeks of ZEST. And I should say that your wellness program is only going to be as successful as the staff at the communities that are leading it make it. We can see at SRG a direct correlation between a ZEST director who feels ownership and feels really involved in ZEST and the success and the outcomes that the residents have, versus ZEST directors who don't really buy into ZEST, then the residents don't benefit from it. So when we launched ZEST at each community, we gave the residents, here's some examples of our ZEST launch. So it was a big deal at the community when we rolled this out to the residents. We had chefs do a fresh ZEST presentation. Some of our really talented staff even made ice sculptures. We gave out prizes. I'll talk a little bit about the ZEST board later. We unveiled it with a red ribbon. We got fresh Zest outfits for the food services team. We did photo booths. We gave away swag. So when we rolled out our wellness program, we made a huge deal out of it. We got new name tags for all of the Zest directors and get the residents really excited about it. So when we rolled it out, we gave every resident a healthy living guidebook. This is something we made internally, evidence-based. And what we did is we emphasized 12 weeks of Zest. So for example, the first couple pages you can see there on the left was about healthy eating habits. So for 2 weeks, the Zest directors planned 2 weeks of healthy eating. So they might have activities where they brought in a farmer's market or a nutrition lecture, or the residents got to do a cooking class, something like that. During that time of these 12 weeks of data collection, we captured data. So we made it really fun for residents, but the goal was to collect a lot of data from residents to understand what they liked and didn't like about Zest preliminarily. So we actually received 10,000 comment cards in which we analyzed the data to get a better idea of what way we should steer Zest in the future. So I'm going to share some of our actionable data trends with you. 77% of the 10,000 comment cards said employees are what makes their day the best. So for us, we took that data and we knew that we needed to streamline the workflow of our Zest directors so that they weren't spending their time on things that didn't have a high impact, and they were able to spend their time focusing on the resident experience to get us to the goal of enriching their lives. So we made a lot of changes from that piece of data. 82% of the residents said that body was their #1 favorite activity. And it was really interesting because they cited the classes as the social camaraderie as the reason why body was their favorite. I think only like 1 or 2% of the residents said that they go to the gym by themselves. So that was really telling for us. So then we set the goal in the deliverable or the performance expectations for the Zest directors to offer 1 body activity a day. We also integrated the use of walking maps at each community. So we had a professional graphic designer build walking maps because exercise is walking is the most adhered to form of exercise for our resident demographic. Safer than treadmills, promote social camaraderie. At the successful communities who are using their walking maps, they have walking clubs, they've named their walking group something funny, they have t-shirts, they have competitions, they go walking at museums prior to COVID. So this has been very successful, and we even put the walking maps in our new move-in packets because of the data that we got from this data collection. Some other actionable trends that we have used just about a month ago, so 3 years after we rolled out Zest, we spent an entire year trademarking and building a program called SRG Cardio Strength Balance and Restore, and we've infused it with our fall reduction program, and we're working with our rehab partners to track data. They're exclusive SRG workouts that, again, we tested for a year on our residents with all this new fun equipment that they've never used, like pedalers for our residents in wheelchairs so they can have spin classes, kettlebells. Even though they only weigh 2 pounds, our residents love calling home and saying that they did a kettlebell class, and a lot of creative things like that that are keeping our residents moving, but also from the data, they told us that the social camaraderie is what they like. So we built those classes around that. And then another really interesting tidbit about body being our residents' favorite activities was that they felt that our fitness centers were a bit sterile and a little bit intimidating. So we actually invested a lot of resources based on this data point to making the aesthetics of our gyms more friendly and warm and inviting. So things like colorful dumbbells. We built this word cloud that you're looking at right here, and it's hanging in every single SRG gym right now. And just having that in there has really warmed up the spaces and made it more inviting for our residents. So again, just being data-driven is so important. 64% of our residents told us that intergenerational was their second favorite activities. So at the time when we got this data point, across our 32 communities, only 3 intergenerational activities were on the calendars across 32 communities, and that's our residents' second favorite. So that was an immediate low-hanging fruit area in which we were able to improve. So we actually put, as part of the Zest Director performance expectations, that they need to have a minimum of 1 intergenerational activity a month. And that can be just something as easy as having a young server come in and give a tech training. And then a couple other things, 57% of our residents told us that 12 weeks of Zest gives them something to look forward to. So we all know that seniors don't like change, but what we learned from that data point is that they are okay with change if it has a predetermined endpoint. So this was really valuable data for us, because anytime we want to try a new program or do something new with our residents that are very slow to warm up to new things, if we put that predetermined endpoint on it based on this data point, we have found that they're more likely to try it and then usually stick with it when we take away that endpoint. So really telling. And then I think this is the last one that I wanted to share. So 63% of those residents also told us that timing and content makes a difference. And so I only included comments if we saw them at least 20 times in those 10,000 comment cards. So things like, we already know aging sucks, you don't need to tell us. Beautiful live music show, then you ruined it by a lecture about incontinence. We don't need to be depressed no more. I know my body is getting old, I feel it every day. This was a very telling data point, because we learned that our residents don't want rehab vendors or other vendors to come in and say things to them like, well, we know it's hard for you to get out of bed every day, but I'm here to talk to you about your incontinence, or I'm here to help you stay mobile. So that really helped us change the way in which we just talked about programs and activities, and our partnerships with vendors about being more positive in the way that we implement new programs and bring in different activities and events. This has made a big difference in morale and participation as well. One more. So 50% of the residents also told us that social contagion strategies work well when done right. So what we mean by that is, actually when we rolled out Zest, we built Zest walls at each community. And we did this because it's a guerrilla marketing technique. And initially I had thought that we'd just have the Zest walls up for the 12 weeks of Zest, but they are so popular, we left them up. So every SRG community has a very visible location with a Zest wall. And every wall is different at every community, because every community is so different. But our residents tell us that they look forward to coming down to see what's written every day. They find new bridge players, they appreciate the positivity, and it feels good to share. So our staff and our residents write on these Zest walls, and our Zest directors will keep them really engaging. So they'll write things like, share a haiku today, or if it's fall, tell us what makes you fall in love, what's your favorite food, things like that. And it creates this community engagement and camaraderie. And we wouldn't have known to keep this going if we hadn't been collecting the data. So just to summarize that data collection piece, if you try to have a wellness program in which you're not being data driven, it's not going to work, because it just won't, because you need the data to know that your wellness program is effective. And then you also need it to know how to steer the program in the right direction that matters most to your resident demographic. Success strategy number 4 is to build your wellness strategy designed for scale. So I talked about how we built that evidence-based infrastructure. If you're going to write one thing down this entire presentation, write this down. If a wellness program is stagnant, it will fail. Wellness programs have to be designed for scale, and they have to be dynamic and changing all the time and evolving all the time. And you really can't do that if you're not collecting the data to tell you how to evolve the program. So again, if you're going to write one thing down this whole presentation, write down, if a wellness program is stagnant, it will fail. It has to be dynamic. It has to be constantly changing. It has to be engaging and challenge the residents in a different way. So we actually took in phase 2 of Zest, after we got the employee wellness or the resident wellness program launched, we actually learned from the data that we needed to take a community-based approach because that was going to increase our success. So if you remember, one of the data points, the first one that I shared from residents, was that employees are what makes their day the best. So if you, you know this just intuitively, but people who like to exercise usually hang out with people who exercise. People that like to drink wine hang out with people that drink wine. Usually smokers hang out with smokers. In the behavioral science research, there's actually an 80% likelihood that people that have similar behaviors hang out with each other. So we know from the research that if we can positively impact one smoker, the likelihood of them having at the community another staff member or another resident that smokes is about 80%. So this is the force multiplier model. So we know that we want to use the force multipliers model to take a community-based approach. And because our residents told us that the thing that makes their day the best is our staff, we decided to create Zest for Staff as phase 2 of Zest strategy, because we know if our staff are excited about Zest and are engaged in Zest wellness and the things that we're doing with it, then that's going to transcend to the residents and they're going to be excited about it too. It's called the force multipliers model. So this is kind of the strategy, and when I say that your strategy should be scalable, this is what ours looks like. So if you look over here on the left, where we started was the residents' engagement with health. So a lot of health services, ID and intervention. Then the intensity of services moves more low when you start getting residents and staff engaged with health. So you're looking at the at-risk population, looking at that parallel benefit between that force multipliers model where you're engaging the whole community, and where we'd like to go by 2021, and we're well on our way, is engaging the entire community with health, so that wellness is truly inculcated into the very fabric of the community. And it's just the norm. It's just a normal part of the way that the community functions. And if we do that, then the risk becomes a lot lower for our residents and our staff, and we save a lot of money in terms of ROI for health insurance if our staff's getting healthier, and being on that continuum of care for our residents, reducing falls and hospital readmissions. So this is our scalable strategy, and within each one of these, there's a bunch of different solutions, some of which I touched on earlier. We know that it's working because shortly thereafter, we launched Employee Zest in August of 2019. And within a month, we got a letter from the resident council at Narrows Glen telling us that they applaud what we're doing with employees and they want to be part of it because they care about our employees. They want them to be healthy and live a long time. So that's great that the force multiplier model is working, and really speaks to the nature of A, being data-driven, and 2, creating that evidence-based infrastructure for a wellness program. So I just want to tell you a little bit about our employee wellness program. It's still called Zest, and everything that employees see is branded as Zest, but we partnered with a company called Sonic Boom. So our employee wellness program is SRG Zest, energized by Sonic Boom. We built, Sonic Boom built a web page and a mobile app. And Sonic Boom is a wellness vendor. All of our employees, regardless of whether they have SRG's health insurance or not, get access to our Zest Wellness program. As soon as they sign up, they get a 20% discount on the gym membership, on a gym membership for signing up. And it's really fun because, again, our strategy is that we want our employees to be engaged with Zest, so that excitement and those positive health behaviors and the things that they're learning through our wellness platform transcends to the residents. So some engagement techniques that are a core focus of our employee wellness program are daily inspiring challenges that focus on group participation, social accountability, I'll talk about this in a minute, cooperative, so social cause contests, and then trophy value experiential incentives. So if any wellness program is giving out cash, that's probably the worst thing that you could do as part of prizes for wellness. So we chose 7 focus areas that are applicable to staff and residents, all within modifiable areas of health and well-being. And they're all of the communications and content and activities and events that are around these 7 focus areas not only are applicable to staff and residents, so we're leveraging that parallel benefit, but we're also communicating to them both. So we've got Zest TVs at every community now, in which we put up content about these topics that residents and staff can see. And I'll get into a little more of what we're doing. So for staff, they have a web page. There's different alerts we can put at the top. So if an executive director tells me that they want their community to have a "Good morning, Arizona, hope you have a beautiful day, even though it's 112 here," message up there, we can do that for residents to see, or sorry, staff to see. And it can also, we can do different messages based by department if we wanted. So if we only wanted caregivers to see a message, we can do that. There's different smart cards that we switch up all the time, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And then every single day, there's a challenge of the day. And the really cool thing about this, there's a lot of cool things. The first thing is that the challenge of the day goes to every employee who signed up for the Sonic Boom platform. So it goes to everyone with an SRG email address, but it also goes to all our employees who don't have an SRG email address but signed up for the platform. So that's a great way to communicate with our employees that are otherwise not in our email network and reach them. The other cool thing is that my Zest directors take the challenge of the day and they put it on their Zest walls at the community, or they give it out to residents, or they create an activity around it. So again, that reinforcement of that force multipliers model. And then the third thing that is great about the challenge of the day is that they're designed to infuse feel-good habits into feel-good habits and behavior into your day infused at work. Because we did the same thing with staff as we did with residents when we first wanted to create a wellness program for staff, was we asked our employees, what do you want out of a wellness program? And all of the traditional things that I thought they were going to want, like working out with coworkers, they did not want any of that. So what they did want was ways in which they could be healthy at work, because a lot of our employees have more than one job. They have big families to take care of. So that's exactly what these challenges of the day do. And they have that camaraderie with each other and with residents too. And then there's also a mobile app that comes with it. I wasn't sure what to expect when we launched this, but we've since learned that about 98% of our employees use the mobile app and not the web page. Makes a lot of sense. It's very intuitive, very easy to use, as you can see. Another cool thing about the platform is that it's unlimited and has fully customizable contests. So any contest any employee can think of, they can create, and they can, I know many of you know Frank White. He's an SRG regional in Arizona. He has created contests just amongst his group of EDs in Arizona. I remember when we first launched Employee Zest in this app, Frank sent me an email and said he was going to leave the country and hide under a rock because he accidentally he created a weight loss contest, but then he accidentally sent it to everyone in the whole company. So he had women emailing him saying, "What the heck, Frank, you think that I need to lose weight?" But literally any contest, no matter how silly, our employees can create that. They can invite only their department. We can have many communities like that are in close proximity to each other have created contests like one community against another community. It's a really great way to create engagement and infuse wellness into our employees' workday. And then again, those challenges of the day that I just told you about, a big piece of this is that resident involvement. So the whole community is trying to reach that challenge of the day. So so the program's really social and interactive. So it's geared towards connectivity and getting employees and residents all to work together to be healthier and supporting each other in doing that, because being healthy is hard. It's much easier to be unhealthy than to be healthy. So we support each other in making those healthy changes. An example of a challenge of the day is here, which we did over Christmas time. It was called Don't Get Your Tinsel in a Tangle, and it was all about stress management. And here's a picture of some of our Amber Lights employees in Tucson, Arizona, working together to put up the Christmas tree, which helped them manage their stress. And they posted this on the platform. So what our employees can do is they can catch each other being healthy or unhealthy, and they can get points towards prizes for doing that. So on the right, some of you listening to this presentation might know Jason Rich. He's our Vice President of Operations for the Arizona region and the East Coast. And this is him grabbing a healthy snack from the kitchen. So he posted this on the Sonic Boom platform, and all of the employees can see it. Here's some of our Atlanta team members that are with their executive director, and they are eating healthy foods, and they created a challenge to help each other eat more fruits and vegetables. This is the Zest launch up in Santa Barbara. This is at Tucson at our Via Hermosa community, in which the dining staff challenged the weights or the Zest team to see which team could hold the bridge the longest, which the bridge was the challenge of the day, the hip bridge. And what you can't see is the residents that are in the background talking smack on them. So they post this to show that they did the challenge of the day. They get points towards prizes for it, but the whole company can see it no matter where they are. So it creates this culture of connectedness and in supporting each other and making healthy decisions. So here's some more Katya as a maintenance director doing a one-legged bridge, which was the challenge of the day. This is a really cool story. This is a housekeeping team that created a contest together, a weight loss contest. And the last time I talked to them as a team, they had lost like 105 pounds, which is awesome. And they tell me that they're working better together as a team because they're supporting each other and being healthier and keeping each other really motivated. And that's helped them come together more as a team with better teamwork. This is an employee that his ED created a stair climbing contest. So this is him at the end of the day saying that he was really tired of using the stairs. And he also has lost 65 pounds since we launched the program. So there's a big ROI, not just to the camaraderie and the culture piece, but we're seeing behavior change. We're seeing employees get healthier. And when they're excited about that, then that force multiplier model comes in and our residents get excited about it too. Success strategy number 5 is that you must have top-down buy-in. Our CEO, Michael Grust, I report directly to him. He brought me in from outside the senior industry. I have no background in the senior industry until I joined SRG in 2017. And he purposely did that because he brought me in because he wanted me to create a wellness program that differs from what everybody else in the industry is doing. And his vision for wellness is really what's made this program successful. And so if you're creating a new wellness program, one of the biggest success strategies is to have that top-down buy-in, because if you don't have it from the top down, your program's not going to be successful. So here actually is Michael Grust, the owner of SRG, meditating in his office. And here's one of our other principals, our CFO, Wick Peterson, doing Pilates, which he's been doing twice a week. He's 73 years old. He's been doing Pilates twice a week, I think, for the last 15 years. And then our EVP, Tim Fox, getting his flu shot. So of course, our employees got points towards prizes for getting their flu shot. So this top-down buy-in alone from the principals, the owners of SRG, has made a huge impact on our employees, not only on humanizing corporate, but also showing how important it is to take good care of your health and well-being. A lot of you probably know Jason Rich and Frank White. So we actually did a contest called Location Domination, where every SRG community competed against each other. And the winning community with the most steps, because the platform syncs with Apple Watches and Fitbits, got to have the corporate VP of operations and the regional director of operations fly to their community, no matter where it was, and they got to pie them in the face. The 3 employees with the most steps at that winning community got to pie our corporate VP of operations and their regional director of operations in the face. So Frank and Jason were really lucky, and they got to fly to Silver Springs in Green Valley, Arizona, and get pied in the face. That top-down buy-in from these guys, that they did that, shows their commitment to Zest, to the wellness program, and the employees buy in. The residents see that. They see how much SRG is committed to wellness and keeping staff and residents well. And we had a big mariachi band. We actually got a photographer. We gave all of the employees who participated gifts and certificates. So it was a big deal. At Christmas this year, the corporate office made our CEO, Michael Gruss, a custom festive Christmas sweater. And so we posted that on the platform, challenging other communities and employees to show us their Christmas sweater fun. So for other communities who never get to meet the CEO or the corporate team, for us to have this platform in which we can show that, it really humanizes, again, us at corporate, but also brings the company together and creates this sense of camaraderie and culture that we didn't have before we got this platform. And then another challenge is we took at corporate a picture of all of us together, and then we posted it on the platform, and we challenged the communities to come up with a better Christmas photo than ours at corporate. And they did, and we got to see that across the company. Another example is recently with COVID, stand together by not standing together. So being able to share photos of all these employees are at different SRG communities and show that we're all in it together, reinforce the message for good habits like social distancing, washing your hands, wearing your mask properly through the platform has been really integral to keeping COVID out of our buildings. And in the top left there is Jason Rich, again, the awesome VP of operations, posing for a photo to show employees how important it is to wear PPE properly, sanitize, use hand sanitizer and such. One other thing that came out of COVID is one community created an SRG Strong tree where all employees could talk about how they or their community is SRG Strong. One person posted their tree at that community on the Sonic Boom platform, and then all of a sudden every community started building a similar tree across all of our SRG communities. So again, wellness is so much more than just nutrition and physical activity. It's that connectedness, to that social connectedness and sense of purpose behind the work that you're doing and where you work. This is another example. So a resident wrote a poem about our maintenance director in Florida, and we posted that on the Sonic Boom platform for all staff to see because he went above and beyond. And ever since we posted that one, then we get stories, heartwarming stories all the time being posted about our staff doing above and beyond things for residents. And it creates this momentum of staff feeling good about doing those things because they're being recognized for going above and beyond, as they should be. And it keeps that momentum going because we're all doing these things together. Success strategy number 6 is to leverage force multipliers. Very important, because just like I talked about with momentum, leveraging those force multipliers helps you keep your program dynamic and it keeps people interested. So here's some examples. We know part of Zest, as we define it internally, is to really fight ageism, because we know that any activity can be adapted to our residents' level of functioning. So here's a photo of an assisted living resident in Arizona who uses a wheelchair that did indoor skydiving. And sharing that photo and sharing that story across the company, leveraging those force multipliers, got a whole bunch of other assisted living residents to try it, writing home to their families about how incredible that experience was. And to have someone roll up to that, that indoor skydiving facility in a wheelchair and then get to skydive was so powerful. Same kind of story here. This is a resident whose husband passed away, and she hadn't been kayaking since he passed away because that was one of her the things that they did together, and she just it was a really moving thank you that she wrote to us for giving her that opportunity. A resident with Parkinson's doing boxing. So sharing all of these types of successes, photos, short stories, helps create that momentum, and it gets more residents who might have initially been a little deterred from Zest or not interested to give it a try, because if they see other residents doing it, then they're going to try it themselves. And the same holds true for staff doing crafts. Just lots of great photos, and all assisted living residents. We also do weekly employee success stories. So same kind of thing, highlighting those force multipliers shows employees that, wow, if he can do it, I can do it too. So this is our housekeeping director at the Heritage in Sun Valley, Arizona. His name's Jorge, and he is incredible. He runs a 5K every single day. He has qualified for the Senior Olympics this year in 2021. And he always wears a Spider-Man shirt when he runs, because he says that he wants little kids to look at him and say, I want to be healthy just like him. So by highlighting those employee success stories, you wouldn't believe how powerful leveraging those force multiplier employees and residents like Jorge is to sparking that behavior change in another employee, another housekeeping director at a different community. We also send out SRG Strong Friday Feels, and we just started this when COVID kind of kicked in, but just uplifting messages that connect us, that build that culture and that camaraderie of well-being, particularly right now, mental well-being. So this is one that went out before Independence Day, where we did an SRG Live event of a resident who was in Arizona at Maravilla Scottsdale. He was a 7-year prisoner of war, and he gave a really empowering live speech to the entire SRG family, residents and staff, about how to get through isolating times, because he was in solitary confinement for 7 years as a prisoner of war. So things like this really help build that connectedness, which is great for our wellness. So some key takeaways are that I think that you should know about wellness, maybe not just from this presentation, but the first one is that wellness is about health. Your wellness program should be about health. Weight is a poor indicator of health. I get so disappointed when I see wellness programs out there that just focus on weight loss. The thinnest person in the world can be the most unhealthy if they're not taking good care of themselves. So a wellness program should not be about looking svelte for an upcoming wedding or looking good in a tux. It should really be about health. And if you hold true to that value, that wellness is about health, be it mental health, physical health, social health, then your program is going to be a lot more successful. Rely on your experts. Some of you might know Jonathan Birmingham at La Sienna in Arizona. I call Jonathan all of the time and ask him how ideas are going to work out at the community. The reason that Zest is successful is because of people like Jonathan. It's not us at corporate. We are not the experts. We're not the ones working with the residents and staff every day. We have to rely on incredible executive directors like Jonathan and like all of you to work with us to help us make our program successful. So every wellness program that you might be starting or currently working on really needs to take an interdisciplinary approach. That's IDT, interdisciplinary, and work with experts like other executive directors, learn what they're doing, ask them tons of questions. I work with sales and marketing all the time. I'm constantly collaborating with health services. Again, calling Jonathan probably once a week, asking him, would this idea work? What about this? And without doing that, your program's not going to be successful. So wellness really needs to take that interdisciplinary approach. Wellness has to be real. There is so much in the media and so many programs that claim to do this and this and this, and it's disappointing because when you dig into it, it's usually just optics. I have a perfect example of this. I heard the other day on a call that one of our competitors got iPads for all of their communities. And so they were saying on the call that they got iPads so residents are engaged. And that's not real. I mean, getting an iPad doesn't mean residents are engaged. It means that you got iPads. You have to take it a step further and use the tools that you get to make wellness real and authentic. It can't just be something that you say that you're doing, because then you're not going to have the outcomes. So by infusing all the success strategies that I've talked about in this presentation, you're going to have a real and authentic wellness program that will truly impact the quality of life of your residents and your staff. If you want to see an ROI, or return on investment, commit the resources to do it right. So it's sad. A lot of times I'll hear about wellness programs, but they want them to be successful, but they don't invest the tools needed to make them successful, which is very frustrating, because you're not going to impact anyone's behavior or wellness or quality of life if you're not investing the resources to do so. When you have the resources, utilize them strategically. So this picture on the left of La Sienna virtual connectedness is a prime example of what I just talked about with the iPads. Just investing in the resource, iPads, and then not doing anything with it doesn't improve resident quality of life. But this resident and his daughter painted together all the time before COVID hit. Like once a week, his daughter would come in and they would paint together. And he was feeling really depressed that he couldn't do that when COVID hit, because his daughter couldn't come into the community. So we connected, you can see in that bottom left photo, one of our iPads up, and they were able to virtually paint together. And that kind of story, taking it a step further and strategically utilizing your resources to improve wellness and quality of life, is what makes a wellness program real and authentic. And the outcome to that is improved wellness. So I just wanted to finish the presentation talking a little bit about COVID-19 and our efforts of what we did in terms of wellness at SRG. All of you listening to this are executive directors, I think. So just a wellness note that's habitual in me is to make sure you put your oxygen mask on first. You're no good to your team, your families, or anybody else, your residents, if you're not first putting on your oxygen mask and taking care of you. And I know you all needed that reminder, because if you're like any of our executive directors at SRG, you are just a complete hero and rock star, working so hard to keep residents and staff safe. And I just applaud all of you. Thank you for everything that you do, because it's just incredible. Just all of you are heroes. So what we did for wellness as it relates to COVID is that at SRG, we know that resident safety and resident balance, there's a very clear, resident wellness, sorry. There's a delicate balance between resident safety and resident wellness. And so when the shelter in place orders came through, we were really worried about resident wellness. And our ZEST teams went above and beyond to engage residents from their rooms through virtual means, hallway croquet, things like that. But we implemented phase 0.5, no touch wellness. The reason that we did this is because we know residents are still the most vulnerable and at-risk population for COVID. So we need to continue to hold the line, don't open up programs and activities fully, but we want to balance meeting residents' fundamental wellness needs and helping them thrive, because we all know how terrible isolation is for seniors. So we launched phase 0.5 no touch wellness. And the reason we chose the name no touch is because it reduces the risk of transmission. So we know that wellness residents would say things like bridge and card games is my wellness. So that's why we chose to go with no touch. And what it included is 3 fundamental wellness areas that we opened back up, using social distancing, using precautionary best practices, 10 or less residents in each group. But we developed a way to meet these 3 fundamental wellness needs of exercise, nature, and cautious socialization with our phase 0.5 plans. What we quickly learned is, and we all know, is that communities have very specific differences. So 2 communities that are in Scottsdale can be completely different. And then of course, SRG is in 7 different states. So there's a lot of state, county, and city differences. So what we did for our phase 0.5 plan is we created guidelines And then we had the executive directors create a written plan within those guidelines that meet fundamental needs of our residents unique to their community. And then we help them review it. And so each community created guidelines that work best for them. And that's really a good takeaway about wellness, is that the generic one size fits all model never works. Every unique community, every unique individual is different. And so their wellness needs are different. That generic one size fits all definitely does not work. So again, we launched phase 0.5. We're still in phase 0.5 because of the current flare-up of COVID, but we're doing a lot of virtual things, and we're offering activities of 10 or less, emphasizing those precautionary best practices that are still touch-free. So we're really meeting that delicate balance between resident wellness and resident safety to ensure that our residents are still thriving, but holding the safety in paramount importance. That's it for me. I'm excited to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for your time.